Good evening, everyone. What's up? And welcome to tonight's stream here on My Disney World Fix. We have two very special guests here tonight for tonight's stream. We have two Monorail pilots. One's a current pilot who's currently furloughed. The other's a former pilot who has moved on to other things in life. But they have graciously agreed to be here tonight to give us some insight on these trains that we love so much that are almost a symbol in themselves of the Walt Disney World Resort. And we have my my tablet wanted to be dumb. Anyway, so good evening, everyone. Let's see who we got in the chat so far. Julio was here earlier. Are you planning to live stream City Walk Universal on Saturday? No, I'm not. Jeff was here earlier. Sam was here earlier. James, Kim, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's stream. So, as always, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Shows me that you like what you're seeing and all that jazz. If you're not already, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell icon so you know when I go live or post new videos in the future. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And if you feel so inclined, you can donate to the PayPal at paypal.me/MyDisneyWorldFix, or you can hit that little super chat button. So good evening, everyone. Hey, Mike. So guys, we're going to hop into it this week. We got a lot to get through. And so let's do this first. We're going to do the Q&A first, like always, on Tuesdays. And then our two guests tonight, they're going by aliases, as I put in the description down below. Red and Coral, they're already in the, quote, green room, as Tanya calls it, waiting for their cue. Hey, David. And Jonathan's here. Resort Budgeting's here. So, guys, let's hop into it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this week's Q&A. Who's got the first question this week? So while we're waiting for that, here's my questions for the monorails. And I'm looking forward to this because I set this up with them about 2 weeks ago. And they've been so excited to get in here and do this and share what they can. So, yeah. And tonight's shirt, as you can tell, it's Epcot. And, of course, the Magic Band is my custom Epcot one. Bernie, hi from Argentina. Hello in Argentina. Did you see Bob's comments about reopening? I think you mean Bob Chapek's comments yesterday on CNBC. I did listen to it last night. I watched a replay of it on YouTube, and I agree with him on a lot of things. The biggest of which is I absolutely believe that Disney is going to weather the storm just fine. They may take a hit for a little while. My only concern is the floating rumors right now. I don't know how accurate they are of a potential buyout attempt by Apple. If those have any legs to them, I don't know. But it does worry me because, as I was telling my father last night, I don't think any other company is going to respect protecting Disney's brand the way Disney respects taking care of their own brand. So that's that. So that's my only concern, and we'll see what happens. Only time will tell on that. All right. Who's got our next question for tonight? Check my mod chat right here. Chase lost track of time. Oops. Yes, guys, make sure you're hitting that like button. All right, guys, who's got our next question here? Lots of stuff going. Oh, I guess we can talk real quickly without being asked about Disney Springs opening. Yes, I do plan on being at Disney Springs next week when they open on the 20th. No, I'm not live streaming that day because the reason I'm not, and I've told the other streamers this, is I kind of just want to feel it out, how Disney's going to be acting towards streamers that day, if they're going to be telling people they can't stream or what they can stream. I don't know. New headset. No, this is my gaming headset. I decided to use it for the stream tonight. So anyway, I went to Walmart the other day. We still have, we're due as far as protection. Just my opinion. Yeah, I think you're right. By the way, we won trivia tonight. Yes, go boys. I hope my one question made a difference that I gave y'all, David. How many packs of TP did I buy today? 0. Yeah, my Walmart's starting to get restocked on toilet paper. So Chase has had 20 margaritas. Chase, is that true? Have you had 20 margaritas? What about you, Mel? How many have you had? Only 4? Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Disney Springs next week. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how much is going to be open. I know that everything they've announced is subject to change, so I'm hoping one of the announcements they change is World of Disney opens up. Maybe I'm wishful thinking there, but it is Disney. Wishes, dreams come true. It can happen. I have one scheduled, but before us. So, oh, and the mask thing. The mask thing kind of concerns me too. I want to see how this plays out, and Disney Springs is a good place to test this. The mask, wearing the mask in public at Disney, out in the heat and the humidity and the rain and all that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So anyway, any questions, guys? If not, we can hop early into the questions. All right. We are totally on a roll here to start the stream. Resort Budget says not Walmart, not my Walmart, still out of paper. No more masks. You know, I did stock up on a few masks the past couple of days just in case, but I know at the very least, the very first day, first like week, the Disney Springs is open. At the very least, they're going to be requiring these masks, so I'm prepared for that. I'm not staying home over the masks. What have you been doing to get ready for opening? Well, let's see. I got new park shoes, so I'm not running around in my old shoes, which are all sorts of worn down. If y'all have watched my stuff enough, you know I have a Mickey that sits on my backpack strap on my right shoulder. Cleaned him up, got him ready to go for the return, and that's pretty much it. Further preparations are underway of things that I'm not going to talk about right now, but yeah. I think my favorite new words I've heard lately is clickbait. Really? Which clickbait have you been dealing with? All right. So, any more questions, guys? Because if not, we're going to hop into a little early to the interview with Coral and Red. Any comments about Shanghai reopening? Super excited that there's a Disney park operating in the world again. I feel like there's magic in the world again now. And I didn't really do all that much of a deep dive into it, but it was so nice to see Mickey and Minnie dancing in front of their train station. So happy. So happy. Let's see, Rachel Lives Disney. How do you feel about temperature checks at the park? I feel like it's a placebo because it's very common knowledge at this point that not everyone who has the virus, who can spread the virus, shows symptoms like a fever. So, I mean, I don't expect them to be completely fruitless. They will catch people and stop people from coming in that are showing the symptoms like a fever, but they're not going to catch everyone. There's still people who are going to slide under the radar, so to speak. And so I feel like it almost provides a false sense of security. I had to go to the doctor the other day, and they took my temperature when I walked in, and I'm just like, why? Y'all of all people should know this proves absolutely nothing. All right. Let's take 2 or 3 more questions, and then we'll head into the interview a little early. I do think I agree with the temp checks, but if masks were really effective, then I'd say wear them, but it's too small for a mask to stop. Yeah, the thing with the mask, my understanding, I could be completely wrong. I'm not a medical doctor. Don't even take this as medical advice. But my personal understanding is that for the mask to be effective, literally everyone in a geographical area have to be wearing it, not just inside a park, but everywhere. So, because the mask only stops the person wearing it from spreading it, it doesn't stop you from breathing it in. That's my understanding. So, Monorail Brown, you're letting that hussy red online tonight. I am. Do you like it? What about Sunshine Churros? Haven't tried either. To-do list, because I got to do something at Disney Springs. What will you do first at the Springs? Now, I'm still got fingers crossed that they're going to open World of Disney, but if they don't, I hope at the very least Wetzel's Pretzels open, because that's one of my favorite places there. So I need my cinnamon pretzel, and I'm hoping the Coke store opens. I haven't heard anything about either of those. I am upset that Raglan Road is not going to be among the restaurants opening, because that is hands down my favorite restaurant at Disney Springs. So it is. My wife's work takes temperatures with infrared. When it's done outside, the sunlight affects the temperature. See, that's one thing that is crazy, is that, you're going to have people coming here with the temperature checks who are from other countries, cooler areas, who are not used to the Florida heat. So their body's going to heat up faster than, say, a Floridian will. And so it could throw it off. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a technician. I'm not an engineer. I guess we'll see what happens. Are you thinking June or July for reopening? I'm still kind of hovering around my mid-June date right now. But the later we get towards June, the more unlikely that seems, because the cast members need time to come back in and get recertified and all that jazz. And I'm sure maybe our pilots can shed some light on that, maybe. But we'll see. Red works in EMS might be a help with some of those fires, because that's true. Maybe we can ask Red some EMS questions. All right, guys, let's take one more question so we can, and then we'll hop into. Usually your skin is cooler than your core. I remember reading that before. I completely forgot about that. How's it work with sunburn, though? I don't know. All right, anyone got one more question? Then we're going to hop into our interview here. Remember, don't take anything I say as medical advice like it's medically factual, because I read things. I could read inaccurate things. I could read accurate things, but I'm not a doctor. I would just open up to locals only. Probably not a popular opinion. Personally, I agree with it. That's what I would do. But, Disney's trying to make up money that they lost and get the revenue flowing again, so they want their resorts operating. Griswold family vacay. How you doing, Grizz? All right, guys. Let's give it about another 30 seconds, see if another question comes through. If not, we're going to hop into it. What's your favorite monorail? Well, blue, of course. And for reasons we'll get into. First of all, it is my favorite color, but there's reasons beyond that. Blue is my favorite color in general. So, guys, without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and hop into the Q&A. So, Coral, Red, y'all can hear me. Go ahead and unmute.
Hello, hello.
So let's hit that right there. But we'll just do that instead. So, guys, here we got, in the middle is Coral, and obviously we got Red over there with her Karen hairdo, or his Karen hairdo.
It's 2020, man. It's him, her, whatever.
It's 2020. Can't judge the monorails.
Don't judge a monorail. All right.
Don't judge a monorail by its color.
How did I score heavy hitters like Monorail pilots as guests? Okay, I can go into this real quick. So there's these accounts on Twitter that are parody accounts that pose as the monorails and just pretend to be the monorails just for
I don't know
fun.
what you're talking about. I am definitely a monorail.
I need to speak to your manager.
Anyway, we're 3 of those monorails. On Twitter, I am Monorail Blue, and of course they're using the alias of their respective monorail accounts. So Coral is Monorail Coral on Twitter, Red is Monorail Red on Twitter, and we had this private chat. And I just went in there one day and asked, "Hey, any of the current or former monorail pilots want to come on the stream?" And they were the 2 that spoke up and volunteered. So, guys and girls, thank you for joining me. So,
Glad to be here.
I don't know. I'm kind of forced to be here.
No, you're not.
It's kind of hard to run away when you have no power.
We got batteries, sort of.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Sort of. I mean, they're double A's, but, whatever.
That was only yellow. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to hop into it here. So first of all, let's introduce the pilots we have tonight. So Cora, let's start with you. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Monorail Coral. Obviously, I'm not going to say my real name, but for those of you who do know me, you probably know who I am just because of my voice. I'm the person on monorails who's always going around talking to people, trying to get everybody to have their best time. I usually do a lot of fun jokes over my PAs. I'm one of the pilots that loves to drive my own train. I think it's the greatest job on Earth. Maybe not on Earth, but it's definitely cool enough to tell people at Walmart and try to seem cool.
Well, you are cool, though.
I mean, I am pretty cool. Thank you.
Not as cool.
I mean, what's...
I don't need your care and opinions, Red.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Shots fired.
Ooh, Twitter beefing. Ooh.
This is so going to go viral among the monorails later on Twitter. So, Red, your turn. Introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Monorail Red. You might also know me as Monorail Brown, the work tractor 3 that tows all the monorails around when they're acting badly. I'm looking at you, Coral. And I'm a former pilot. I worked there from 2008 to 2010 as a pilot. So I'm what's considered a legacy pilot. Worked under the old system before they upgraded to this new fancy stuff that doesn't work.
Oh, the dig. The heart.
I know.
All right, so let's start with learning a bit about y'all before we jump into talking about our beloved trains here. So first, I want to know from each of you, when was your first visit to Walt Disney World? Coral, you're first.
My first visit to Walt Disney World, I was 6 months old. Yeah, I know. Real memorable time. I was 6 months old. I came from a Disney family to the point where I could identify the ride buildings based entirely looking at their roof on Google Maps from a very young age. I don't spend as much time at Disneyland, but I obviously spend all my time at Walt Disney World, considering I'm a monorail there. I've been going for years and years. One day, I just kind of got a bug to see if there were any Disney jobs available because I do live in the Orlando area. And not monorails came up, not monorails, but something else came up. Things just kind of happened. I end up in monorails and I haven't looked back since. It's a wonderful job. I love doing it. I love the amount of people that I can see and connect with and just tell all these cool facts about trains and Disney and talk about what they like and just connect to so many people. It's a lovely time.
All right, Red, when was yours?
Well, picture it, Sicily, 1912.
Oh my God.
Hey, Golden Girls fan here. Stop it. Anyway, so the long story is that I grew up in Virginia, and so we never really went to Disney World. And I actually started working at a Paramount theme park in the late 90s. And then my senior year of high school, some friends of mine and myself that we worked together with decided to skip school for a week and took a vacation to Florida. And
You delinquent.
shh, don't tell my mom. So we went down. I don't remember much of it. It was one of these, hey, let's drive 14 hours and let's go have a few days fun and then turn around and drive another 14 hours back. So it's kind of a whirlwind trip. And this is pre-Animal Kingdom, so 96 maybe, 96 or 97. Went through, did the 3 parks, came home. A few years later, my girlfriend / fiance at the time, we decided to move away from Virginia to go run away to the circus. We moved to Georgia, lived there for 5 years, decided we wanted to go further south. We went to go work for Disney, and we spent 5 years in the Orlando area. Besides working for Disney, I also worked at Universal for 2 years. So I got a taste of both worlds, the dark side of the moon, as some people call it, that shadowy place that Simba looks at. And from there, I found my passion, working in the themed entertainment industry.
And your Brown account in the chat mentioned you're an EMS now, correct?
Yeah, I've actually been in fire and EMS for 20 years. That's kind of showing how old I am. I took a 10-year break from it just because of when you do the stuff that I do, it kind of gets to you after a while. So I decided to take a little bit of time away. Did some volunteer firefighting in Georgia for a little while, and then when I moved to Florida, Florida's kind of hard to transfer your license to, so I kind of just let it sit dormant for Virginia, and I didn't really do anything while I was down working for Disney. And then when I moved back to Virginia, I reactivated all my certificates and came back to doing the other passion, which is making sirens and lights go off.
All right, so what's each of y'all's favorite park at Walt Disney World?
Oh man, that's tough. I did like Hollywood Studios until Galaxy's Edge opened up. It's just it gets too, like, that's the hard part about being a cast member is you want to go to the parks, but now that everybody just buys the cheap tickets on the expected cheap days, there's no real off season anymore. It's like, well, I could go before my shift or I could go never. So most times when I do go to Epcot, just because I do love all the festivals. I think there's something for everybody there. And I usually will have something in each festival that I specifically am looking forward to. I don't really enjoy going to Animal Kingdom anymore. I don't really enjoy going to Hollywood Studios. I enjoy going to Magic Kingdom right before a hurricane because it's empty. When Dorian came through, I had to work my shift that day. That morning, I went to Magic Kingdom. I walked on to Seven Dwarfs, and it was the most beautiful day. Literally 5-minute wait. I cannot wait for another hurricane to come through Florida.
Walked on to Mine Train. Okay, I'm impressed.
Walked on to Mine Train. I did Mine Train. I did Space Mountain. I didn't do Splash Mountain. Don't worry, I got rained on later. It was fine. But just like the big heavy hitters of Magic Kingdom were all done in the same day. I haven't been to Magic Kingdom since because I don't want to break that memory in my brain. Definitely, it has to be Epcot, though. I don't know how that ranking is going to change once Spaceship Earth goes into refurb, though.
Oh my gosh, I'm dreading it. How about you, Red? What's your favorite?
I don't have really a favorite park. They're all equally on the same level for me. But what I can say is I have favorite events in the park. Besides working in Monorails, I was also a status cast member for Kilimanjaro Safari. So I was a status cast member for Tomorrowland Attractions. And then I was cross-trained in, I think, 7 different areas. Food and beverage, quick service foods, merchandise, hotel operations. It's easier to list the things I weren't a part of than it is to tell you what I was a part of.
Okay. Gotta upshow some people here. I see.
Well, I mean, especially during the summer, most weeks I was working anywhere from 70 to 100 hours a week.
Okay, gotta upshow somebody. I see.
I abuse the extra hours hotline like you would not believe.
I can tell. You were hitting up EHH all the time, weren't you?
Well, see, that's the thing. Working safaris, especially in the summertime, you have to be at work by 5:30 in the morning to get the safari up and running.
Awful. Awful. I hate those early mornings. I hate opening in the morning. It's the worst thing.
It is. It's awful, especially monorails, because you'd have to be there at 4 on a regular day.
That is why I'm a nighttime operation person, and I probably just gave away some personal details.
I dreaded any days they scheduled me for daytime. I could not. If I came in before noon, life was miserable that day.
Oh yeah.
Because this daytimers, they're just bitter day walkers. They're not like the fun party people that work at night.
The fun party people that work at night. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about how y'all became a cast member each. When did y'all decide y'all wanted to become a cast member? Essentially, what's the story of what led you to becoming a cast member? Well, Coral's muted right now, so we'll start with you, Red. What's your story on that?
So, even from a young child, and this is the whole reason why I got into EMS in the first place, is that I enjoy helping other people, making other people laugh, have fun, improve their day. And so that's why, I was working in the Paramount Parks for 5 years. I enjoyed almost all that time there, except for it was Paramount. Paramount treated us like a redheaded stepchild. And then I kind of missed it for a while. I left Paramount at the end of the 2000 season, and I kind of missed it. I missed all the the camaraderie that I had with people. I missed all the getting to know guests coming in, trying to brighten their day up. So in 2007, my wife and I had decided that we were going to leave Georgia and move to Florida, that's a whole other story that I won't get into. But I started off because I had a background in structured cabling, so networks, cable, satellite, telephone. Since I had a background in that from before getting into EMS, I decided to go work for a company in Orlando doing installing cable for the cable company down there. And I quickly got tired of that after falling through a ceiling, and decided, you know what, I'm going to see what Disney had to offer. I applied, and they offered me safaris, and I'm like, you know what, can't go wrong working for the mouse. And that's the beginning of the journey.
Oh, cool. How about you, Coral? What was your story of how you came to be a cast member?
I was not happy in my last job. So on a whim, because I was in the Orlando area, I just was checking Indeed, all these Facebook sites. And then one of the ads came up for Disney jobs. And I was like, well, it's a huge place. There's probably something that's going to be cool for me to do, because I feel like I don't really have a whole lot of specified skills. But when I did live up north, because I moved down here from up north, I worked with a couple of different train companies and had a little bit of a train infrastructure background. I worked a lot with animals, so I had a lot of animal background. I had applied for a couple more of the animal jobs, mostly at Animal Kingdom, keepers, assistants, that kind of thing, stable hands at Tri-Circle D. The one that actually did go through, something had happened with my email, and it just completely had gone unnoticed. They didn't notice either on their end, so they called me one day. They're like, hey, you had an interview for today in an hour. We don't know if you're going to be able to make it at this point. Why don't we schedule you for another time, and then we can talk to you about what you might possibly want to do. And I was like, that sounds fine. Sorry about that. Totally my fault. Not done. There, like a week later, I went in and I was doing no, monorails don't have windshield wipers. You can't see in the rain. In the middle of this interview, I was like, yeah, I have a lot of background knowledge. I've got a lot of safety orientation knowledge, because by this point I was doing the monorail interview. I just picked it as a whim. They were like, you can try for this, you can try for that, you can try for monorails. I was like, monorail sounds cool. I love monorails. When I was a little kid, I did the whole sit in the front cab with the pilot thing, and oh man, it was great. I didn't think that I was going to be driving them. I mostly thought I was just going to be like a platform person, because I didn't know how the operation worked at the time. I just showed up. Lady was like, so what do you think you're going to do here? I was like, I thought I was going to have fun and drive a train. And apparently it was one of the higher ups in the Department of Transportation. I don't remember who, because it was a couple of years ago, but apparently they liked my humor. I got the monorail job. I showed up for my first day and my expectations were blown away. I had no idea what was going on. It was like 4 a.m. It was a time. I still cannot do morning time stuff. Me and mornings do not enmesh. Me and night times, totally fine.
Sound like me. I'm a night owl.
Absolutely. I'll be up at all times of the night. I will put away trains as long as they need me to. There have been multiple nights where I leave at 3, 4, 5 a.m. It's just great.
All right. So what was Monorail your first choice, Coral? No, it wasn't. You just said that. What was your first choice?
My first choice was either, I don't remember. It was something at Animal Kingdom or it was a stable hand at Tri-Circle D.
What about you, Red? What was your first choice?
CEO.
Let's see.
That job was taken, so I just said, what do you have available? And the options were like Safari and I think Character Attendant at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I think Safari's would be kind of cool and interesting to get into. And it was an awesome job, but the culture working at Animal Kingdom is much different than the culture working at any of the other parks. It's one of these types of things is that from the time you step foot into Declamations, which is the class you take on your first day of working in your park or at Animal Kingdom, they brainwash you into believing that Animal Kingdom is better than all the parks. We are better than any Disney park, and that we are so high above everybody else that we should be looking down on everybody else. And not that that's what they're teaching you, but it's the mindset, because they're like, we're all about the animals. We're all about, the guest experience with the animals. We're all about, providing that show. They're like, there's things that you can do in other parks that you will not do here. And so I enjoyed it, but working on the safaris, there was times that I didn't enjoy it. But I met one of my very best friends working there, and he actually became a monorail pilot, which is what made me want to become a monorail pilot. And we did some amazing things there. He was a magician, so he taught me a lot of magic tricks that we would kind of do this whole Abbott and Costello routine working together, doing magic tricks for kids and just having a general good time. Basically, we couldn't care less about the monorail trains. We had more fun being with the guests and doing guest interactions than we did with though we did enjoy the driving portion, thoroughly enjoyed it, but the guest interaction is what actually drove me to continue it.
So what was y'all's favorite part of the job? For Coral, this is still your job, so what is your favorite part of the job?
My absolute favorite part of the job has to be driving the trains. I don't feel like anything else I can do in life will really measure up to being such a small group of people that can say that they are a pilot of a monorail system at Walt Disney World, because these are 12 almost completely custom trains that they're not a worldwide kind of thing. Obviously there's different monorails all over the world, but these are our monorails. These are iconic. These are on merchandise. People love these trains. And I'm one of the people who gets to drive them and take people to these wonderful vacations where they're going to have the best times of their life. They're going to make memories, and they're already making memories on my train. So I try to make it as fun as possible anytime I have anybody around me or on my train or near me or anybody who needs help in general.
How about you, Red? What was your favorite part of the job while you were a pilot?
100% would be the guest interactions. Especially being a legacy pilot, we had a lot of downtime. I don't want to say a lot of downtime. It's not like, we were breaking down a lot, but it's not. It was, the amount of time it took to switch a train from one track to the other. So we would have station downtimes that could be anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour, depending if the switch was working properly or the train was able to get to the switch on time or God knows what. So you always had to be on. If you ever work in attractions, you have an A show and a B show. Same thing with entertainment. There's an A show and a B show. The A show is what you normally run. B show is when you have to remove elements. And so when we're removing an element, say a train has its downtime, we have to be the entertainment for the people, because when you have 6 million Brazilians in your queue, trying to get onto a train, you got to entertain them when that train's not moving.
6 million Brazilians.
That's what it feels like. And you've never lived until you've been in the pilot seat and you have all those Brazilians in your train and they're chanting and bouncing up and down while you're driving down the track.
Oh my gosh.
When you can feel your train swaying from side to side because everybody's jumping and screaming and doing all this stuff and you're just like, please don't knock my train off the beam.
Yes, that's exactly how it feels.
All right, so this question is for Red specifically. Do you miss it?
So not to go into a whole lot of detail because I was a legacy driver during 2008 to 2010. Mm-hmm. There's times that I don't miss it. And then there's other times that I miss it so bad that I just want to curl up in a ball and cry. Because it's not about the trains, it's not about the park, it's about the people. And I miss the people.
And for you, Coral, specifically, are you looking forward to being called back to work from your furlough?
I absolutely am, because I miss my paychecks. It's the culture of monorails it's very intensely knit. It's a very tight-knit community. We all do our best to look out for each other, and you do get very, very close to the people around you, especially when you're on the platform for 6, 7, 8, 9, up to 12 hours with the same people every day. Like me specifically, I only ever worked one station. So the people who work that same station with me, they become family almost. They get really close. You get really tight-knit. I miss my people. I miss the people that I can't see because I'm not at work. I miss being around to make those memories for people just by driving a train around a concrete beam that doesn't go anywhere except a circle. But I think the thing I miss most about is just driving the trains. I get in my car sometimes and I'm just like, oh, it's a steering wheel. It's not my monorail display.
And we're currently being invaded. My friend, I mentioned this to you before the stream, Coral. My friend Tanya, she's apparently sent people over from her stream to say hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. So,
gosh. Hi, pal.
That was actually pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I actually, whenever I had downtime on my train, like if we're sitting at a hold point, I would break out my cast of characters because I can do Stitch and Mickey, and I used to be able to do Goofy and another character. So I would break out doing spiels in the character voices.
Oh, cool.
May or may not have gotten in trouble for that.
I think you do. My friends say I do a pretty good Mickey. I'm not going to do it right now, but I think you do a better Mickey than I do. So,
well, thank you.
So I keep trying to work on Stitch, but I just can't get Stitch down.
Stitch is actually like my spirit animal, so I kind of just channel him a little bit.
But can you do a Stitch impression?
Yeah.
Oh man, put me on the spot.
Come on, Red.
See, I haven't done it in a while. Let's see.
Time to brush off those skills.
See, the whole thing is that Stitch doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue in the movie, so it's
standard line. Ohana means family.
Ohana means family. Family. Oh, God, I can't even remember now. Why'd you put me on the spot?
It's good enough. It was good enough. Good job.
Family means no one gets left behind or forgotten.
Yes. You're killing me, Smalls.
All right. Well, Kim, that was for you. So anyway, back to the questions. So what has it meant for both of you to say, hey, I have worked for the Walt Disney Company? Has it meant something to your childhood dreams or anything like that?
It absolutely has for me. Ever since I was little, I've always loved trains. We have always lived close enough to trains that I hear them all hours of the day. I used to fall asleep listening to the train yards behind my childhood house. The fact that I get to work doing what I've wanted to do since I was young, which is infrastructure and train movement, but I can do that at Disney, where I have so many memories of my own, and just thinking back on all the times that I had ridden that train before it meant significance to me, because I've always preferred the monorail over the ferry boat. Ferry boat, that thing sinks. I don't want to drown in. I don't want to drown in that pond. It's gross. I've seen the things they've dredged out of there. It's like car keys and like old drink cups and diapers. I would rather not be in Seven Seas Lagoon if anything happened. But like monorails, they've always been my preferred method of transportation at Magic Kingdom. I've always thought they were just beautiful trains in general, and I've always preferred them in every way to anything else. The buses, the ferry boats, walking. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just kind of rambling on and on.
Hey, it's entertaining though.
I'm glad at least I can be entertaining.
Yeah.
That's usually
How about you?
Told.
Well, thank you for the $10 super chat, Just Story. Anyway, so Monorail Red, your turn. Red, what has it meant to you to say I worked for the Walt Disney Company at one point?
Oh man. So man, how do I even answer this? So it means the world to me, not because of working for Disney. Growing up, I was vaguely aware of Disney. Up until, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. I kind of learned that they had a park, but, my family was too poor to go. I mean, driving 14 hours plus spending, well, back then isn't what we spend now, but, spending several $100s for a family of 4 to go play in the parks, that wasn't really something that we could have done. It wasn't until I started getting out on my own. And then I started understanding more of the core values of Disney. Even to this day, I still live by the core values. One of the things that would irritate some of my management team and my team leads and everything is that I've always put show above everything else. No, not above safety, but show was pretty high up on my list of my core values, and I always lived by what Walt wanted. Walt didn't want a lot of stuff that we're doing in the parks nowadays, and so I kind of said, what Walt wanted it to do this way, this is how I'm going to do it. And I tell you, when I was working in Tomorrowland, I was working at Stitch's Great Escape, and I'm kind of introverted normally. If you see me out on the street, I might say hi and I'll keep on walking. When I was working at the parks, I actually had a different personality. You might even say it was a multiple personality, because I switched on. I switched on to this whole different character in my head. And so when I was working at Stitch, I'm on the mic. I'm really in character. I'm not like some of the people you see at the attractions, like, oh, okay, 5, come on in. I'll get on the mic and I would make people part of my show. I would actually become part, especially at Stitch. It was me becoming a recruiting agent for the Galactic Federation, and I'm trying to get people to come in, take a tour of the facility, become Galactic agents, working at the teleportation center. And I don't know if anybody's ever met Dan Cockrell. He was the vice president of Epcot for probably 6 or 7 years. But when I was working in Tomorrowland, he was actually part of a new initiative that they were doing to get the 4 keys rolled out in all the parks, because originally it started out in Animal Kingdom, then it came to Magic Kingdom, but the 4 keys weren't really something that people live by. And he came up to me after about 30 minutes of standing across the way over next to Monsters Inc. watching me. He's like, I want to know all about what you're doing here and why are you doing it, and explained everything to him, and he's like, this is exactly what we want. This is exactly what we want every cast member to be like. And ever since then, that's followed me through the entire time I worked at Disney, the entire time I worked at Universal, and even to today. I put my show above everything else. I bring people into my world, and I make them a part of my world. And that's pretty much, I don't know, I guess that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. And that's awesome. All right, so let's move on to the monorails now. Let's get into the trains themselves. So let's start with Coral. Coral, from your perspective, what is it like to drive one of these beloved trains, these monorails?
It is constantly terrifying. No, it's not actually. But it is kind of weird. Being in the driver's seat of what in some cases is a 30-year-old train looking at like red or blue or some of the trains that have been there since 89, not some of the newer trains. But sitting in some of them like red sometimes, and they all definitely have personalities, Karen.
Hey,
So
I earned my personality.
you've earned your personality, but it's definitely odd sometimes when you're just sitting there like, wow, I am in charge of the safety of 300 up about when it's a packed train. I'm in charge of the safety of about 300 people every 5 minutes, because every 5 minutes I get a whole new group of people when I visit another station. In some cases it's even less than that. Like, it doesn't take 5 minutes to get between the Polynesian and the Grand Floridian. It only takes 5 minutes because everybody takes too long to get on the train. But like, it's little things like that throughout the day when you're just sitting in your chair driving along, something happens and it makes you think like, wow, there are people on my train, and there are possibly a lot of people. Some of them might be recording, some of them are very small, some of them are old, some of them will not forget this moment. This is the one time they might be on a monorail in their life. I'm gonna have to make this good for those people, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what's going on. Those kinds of things, It's definitely a unique opportunity that I have never experienced in life, to be piloting a large mode of transportation with many people on it that I can connect to all at once, literally by hitting my PA button. Because as they always tell us, yes, we have automated spiels in the trains, but it's really the voiced spiels from the pilots that get to people. Because even I will just kind of tune out whatever automated spiel I hear in the background. We hear them really loud in the front because there's speakers up in front of us to make sure that our spiels are playing throughout our train, which is one of our checks. But when you hear that, you just kind of tune it out after a while. You hear it every 5 minutes. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. And then I come up, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard Monorail, blah, blah, blah. And that's when people actually prick their ears and listen. And that's the kind of thing that I enjoy doing the most. That's when I can take that 5 seconds of somebody's attention span and make that memory for them.
I gotta agree with you. I ride the monorail so much that I've come to the point where I tune out the automated spiels as well. The only ones I really listen for these days anymore are obviously stand clear of the doors because it's so iconic to the monorail system itself.
Right. And
I listen for the party announcements when they're advertising the party. Those are the only ones that I listen to really anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So let's see. What about you, Red? What was it like for you to drive a monorail?
So being a legacy pilot, it's a little bit different. There's 100 different things you're having to do all at once. It's keeping track of the fact of that there's another train ahead of you. You need to know exactly where all your hold points are, because when your MBS or the moving block system, the color-coded lights that are on the dash that says, hey, there's a train in front of you. There's not a train in front of you. Hey, there might be a train in front of you. Maybe not. You're not really sure. You have to keep track of that. But if that's not working, which is a lot of times, because it's working off of it was working off an antiquated networking system over a power rail system, which also using radio transmitters that didn't hardly work all the time. You had to keep a visual of what's ahead of you. And yes, I've overrun my train. It's not a fun feeling. You get 3, and that's when bad things happen, when the third one happens. Yeah, it happens. But
nothing is as terrible as being called out on the radio when you do make mistakes. It is actually awful. And then everybody, though department-wide, knows that you messed up, because all of our radio signals start by saying whoever is calling to whoever is like the intended subject. So 100% who messes up when, because we all have to preface our calls by saying who's calling who.
Yeah. And it's that, I mean, you're listening to radio traffic, you're listening to or you're watching the trains ahead of you, you're watching your screen, you're watching your speed, you're looking for anything that might be on the track, because yes, I've run over seagulls before. A friend of mine has ran over a fish. Ran over a fish.
A fish.
Yes,
Fish.
that's a story that has kept circulating in the Monorail department. The stories about the driver who hit a fish. Everybody has hit at least one bird, and if they say that they haven't, they're lying.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, there's so much things you have to do. Plus, you have to remember you're driving, and this is empty weight. It's a 64-ton train, and you start adding 300 people into it. That's another whole crap load of weight. You know,
all the weight that moves too, like strollers and small children jumping around.
I mean, you're coming out of the Contemporary and back as a Legacy driver. I mean, I can get 45 miles an hour coming out of the Contemporary, coming into the Magic Kingdom.
Well, isn't that nice?
I know, right?
Unfortunately, I'm a little speed limited now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have speed limits too.
It's okay. Now, current pilots, we're all about finesse. It's fine.
Yeah, there's nothing like flying into the station and stopping on a dime. You know, whatever. People fall down. It's okay.
And that is why our brakes don't work anymore, children.
Yeah, well, hey, I've got stories upon stories about monorails getting hit by lightning and almost catching on fire. I'm looking at you, Monorail Gold. There's
poor Gold.
I don't
know. All of my bad experiences have been with Yellow or Peach.
Yellow is a troublemaker.
Yellow is still a troublemaker.
The best train out there was Monorail Green, to be honest. When I was
honestly, still.
The thing is that the parody account of Yellow is also a troublemaker, so that fits quite appropriately.
It does. It's Yellow's temperamental, very temperamental, almost as temperamental as Red, but well, I mean, there's a reason why Red gets towed off every day. I mean.
All right, so our next question on the list. Okay, so I think Coral can attest to this more to the current process, and I mentioned this one to you before we got started. So what time does the monorail's day start? When are they pulled out of backstage? What is the process to get the monorails going for the day look like?
It really depends on the day. For normal operations, usually we start about 4:30, 5 o'clock. We'll drive anybody who has to pick up, or we'll drive out anybody who has to go to the monorail roundhouse first to go bring out trains. Anybody who needs to get out to open up a train that was parked overnight on the beamways, get everything up and going, let everybody have their chance to talk to the central coordinators, get their trains up and going, kink out any irons. And by that time, we're usually starting our operation about 7 a.m. from like when we started to when we're first starting to pick up passengers. Depending on the day, we might start anywhere from 5:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning. Nighttime operations, usually we start, this is after we close off the trains to people. Usually we start shutting down anywhere from 11 o'clock to 2 in the morning, depending on if there's a party or if there's an extenuating circumstance, if we have extra testing, if we have construction to work around. All those little things will change our hours so much. There have been days when I have come in, like working a day shift at 3 in the morning, and we started at 5. There have been days when I started at 8 at night and I worked till 6 in the morning. A pretty standard time for us now, without parties or anything else, it's usually about 4:30 in the morning for start time for us, and then about 11 to 12 o'clock at night for the night people to shut everything down.
All right. Was that similar for you, Red, back in the day?
Yeah. We had, in the earlier time of my time in rails, we had fewer restrictions. We had fewer procedures that we had to do. Where we could park nose to nose in the Contemporary, and we could leave trains sitting in the stations at night, and just not take anything back to the shop. Well, not all the time, but we would leave a train up in the Contemporary. We leave a couple trains down to Magic Kingdom. They would have cleaning crews that would come and wash the trains, scrub the floors. We would probably put half the fleet back in the shop at night, leave the other half out. Procedure wise, like I said, we did a lot of things. Like we would drive backwards. There's been many times where I was working on Epcot, and we would have to drive the route backwards from the front just because there's one reason or another that they just had to have us do that. Nowadays, from what I'm hearing, is they don't have as much fun as we used to.
We have plenty of fun, thank you.
Well, I mean, y'all have a lot more restrictions than we had.
We do have a lot more restrictions. I'll give you that. We do have a lot more procedures to go through, but we managed to booty so many things around that.
Yeah.
All right. So I've noticed that sometimes, the monorails will be listed for like this 7:30 a.m. open, but it started taking on guests at like 7 a.m. So who is it that makes this call to open the monorails early for the day? Is this some sort of coordinator at somewhere else on property, or what goes on there?
It's more of a leader thing. We don't really get to decide when we open. We just show up when they tell us to show up. Generally, scheduling and the leaders will work with park operations to figure out when they are going to need to run the monorails. It gets a little dicey around like marathons and parties because sometimes we don't cover those things, and it's ferry boats, and it's whatever is handed off to who and who's going to support what. It's a lot easier for us to do nighttime operations because we're generally a lot faster than the ferry boats, especially with their current capacity, usually being only 2 boats at night to just get people out after fireworks exit, after the parade exits, after, if there's a party, fireworks viewing, those kinds of things. It's just generally faster when we're running at efficiency. If we're not, everybody's going to have a bad time.
Yeah, I basically got to the point as a guest where, the park closes, especially if it closes with fireworks. I'll watch fireworks and I'll go off and just shop in the store for about 30, 45 minutes, let the crowd kind of clear out. That's what I do.
Yeah,
there's nothing like working what they call an exit, where you have, I don't know, roughly 4,000 people standing in line for the monorail. And you're having to slam trains through. I mean, it was great when we were running like a 442 or 444.
If we're running a 442, we're usually pretty okay.
Yeah, until like red breaks down or yellow breaks down or
red breaks down and silver breaks down and then black breaks down, and then all of a sudden we've got 2 trains on Express, 1 train on Epcot somehow, and the other one's limping along. There's kind of 3 trains over on the resort line, and we're just looking at the crowd of people like, yep, okay, we can do this.
And see, we were lucky back in the day because we had a lot of really big open space in front of the turnstiles all the way down to the monorails, and we set up queue lines, and we set up this whole elaborate maze so we could fit there's 4,000 people in line. And now with all the construction that they're doing outside of the front gate, I'm assuming it's harder to do a park exit.
It's become a real challenge. This is where a lot of our coordinators really will shine through, though. We have our audience control people, and sometimes I'll volunteer to be on that just because it's more fun to be downstairs and dealing with the rush of people than it is being upstairs and dealing with the rush of people. Our coordinators have been super about figuring out ways to make our barricades work the best way with the construction, because they move the fence almost every day at a point. Well, they did when we were open. They would move that fence almost daily at a point, to the point where the coordinators would have to come up with a whole new queue line to make everybody fit. Half the time we still had people in the park, like behind the turnstiles, waiting for their chance to be in the monorail line from the monorail line. Some nights it gets dicey, but we do tend to make it work as best as we can.
I've noticed lately that sometimes that monorail line will actually bob and weave and go back into the Magic Kingdom turnstiles, then out, and I'm just like,
that has been pretty standard before we close down, just because of how high up the fences for construction were. We have almost no space to leave the resort line except for the resort ramp at Magic Kingdom. There's no space downstairs for a line because we still have to dedicate a space for the people who are exiting, because a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people head to Magic Kingdom to get their bus at the end of the night,
Yeah.
So we have to make sure we still have those exit ways for those people, especially if they're in a wheelchair or they have a big stroller, because it's now 11 o'clock at night. Everyone's tired and crabby. There's huge lines. People keep pulling us as we come back from our breaks. Like, what's going on? Why is this taking so long? How long will it be till I get on the monorail? I'm like, I'm so sorry. It'll be in a little bit. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to
Yeah.
go up there to give somebody a break so that I can get you home.
Yeah, people don't realize that sometimes, other resort guests, they'll go from like maybe All-Star Resort and they'll have taken a bus and ended up like the Poly because they had a reservation at Ohana. Now they're trying to get back to the buses at Magic Kingdom to get back to their resort.
Exactly. And the amount of times I've had to explain that to people when they're like, oh, well, why are they coming here? It's past the park closed. I'm like, because they're trying to get to the resort bus because this is one of the major bus hubs. And Epcot's already done for the night, so they can't get their bus there.
Yeah.
But the amount of people who don't understand that versus the amount of people who do is just staggering.
All right, so I think Ray can speak to more to this than you can, Cora. But one of the safety systems that is or was, I think it was on the monorails is called MAPO. Can you elaborate on it and what it did or does?
All right, so you actually have to know a little bit more of history of MAPO. A lot of the Disney nerds out there know that MAPO was a division of Imagineering before Imagineering was a thing that designed attractions and safety systems. So if you look at most of the historical attractions like the TTC, not TTC, the TTA in Tomorrowland, if you know where to look, you'll find MAPO's labels on their control panels. Same thing with the trains, the steam trains, those illegitimate heirs to the throne that we refer to. They have the same moving block system that the monorails did, where there's data pucks along the train tracks, just like the monorail track had data pucks on them that would tell us where another train was, how close we were, or to slam on emergency brakes if we're getting too close. So the MAPO system, once again, Mary Poppins, was a moving block system similar to what you see on regular train systems like CSX and whatnot, where you see the colored light balls on the stands. It would tell us if we're moving within the safety cushion of another train. So we would start off in green. Green means, hey, you're clear to keep going. And then once we got within, I want to say three safety blocks of another train, it would go to yellow. And then once we encroached into that second safety block, it went to red, and it automatically slammed your e-brakes on. And that's when you have to make a phone call to Central and tell them that you've done something bad.
It sounds like a phone call.
Yeah, it's not fun. But there are times, because we're working, especially in my time, we're working with an antiquated system. Say, Disney Imagineering didn't like the computer system that Bombardier gave them for the Mark VI when they upgraded from the old system to the new system of the Mark VI. So Disney Imagineering decided, hey, we can do this better. Not really. The data puck system that they put in, the power line networking system that they put in, didn't always communicate well. And there's been times where I'll have a green MBS ball on the screen, and bam, straight to red. No yellow, no nothing. It wasn't because I encroached on another train. It just lost track of where I was and said, okay, I don't like this. I'm going to shut down now. And if I'm not mistaken, it still kind of happens with the systems that they have now.
Yeah, it still is pretty similar, except instead of those illuminated lights in the side panel, we actually do have speed limits now, thankfully, because you guys, we're going a little too crazy on those hills. We do have speed limits that are governed on the train's operating systems that tells us at this point you can go this speed, at this point you can go this speed. You can come within 2 miles an hour, and it will start to sound off an alarm. If you go over 2 miles an hour on top of your speed, then your train will e-stop itself for safety. It's not that we rely on knowing our hold points anymore because it's all location based. Our hold points are pretty distinct. We don't have nearly as many as you guys did in Legacy. But now our hold points are integrated with our systems on the computers of the trains. It'll tell us we have this many feet until we reach our next stop, whether that be a hold point or that is a switch or that is a station or that's just where they've routed you for some reason or other. But we don't have to rely on knowing our hold points anymore. It's helpful to know your hold points. It lets you have a little bit more finesse as a driver, so you can know exactly when you need to start braking because your train is going to start telling you to brake or start speeding up or just generally have a smoother ride on knowing when to stop and where to stop. It's one of the things we actually stress a lot teaching newer pilots. It's part of our assessment on stopping at an exact location in an exact way, because if you can't see this certain pylon from where you're sitting in your chair, you've already failed your assessment and you will have to take it again. And if it's your second try, you don't get another chance. That's it for you. We have a it's not a hard assessment. It's a lot to remember, but it's definitely stressed in our assessment on stopping decently so that you not only make your point, but you're not making your guests uncomfortable.
All right. So you're talking about the speed limits, Coral. So generally now, what is the top speed for the monorails in practice? Like open beam on Epcot, full green ahead.
Full steam ahead, Epcot, 40 miles an hour. If you can be if you can finesse it a little, coming out of the Contemporary Hill headed toward the Transportation Ticket Center, especially on the resort side, you can get it up to 41. I've seen 42 just using gravity. The trains don't like it, but you can do it.
What's really fun is when you have someone from maintenance on the train and they're using a maintenance key, and then the governor is taken offline, and those trains can actually do 120 if they're on a straightaway.
That was going to be my next question. In theory, what is the top speed the trains are absolutely capable of? I mean, not something that you would ever actually see them go, but in theory.
You could, in theory, hit 120 if you have a straightaway. The problem is, especially with the Disney trains, they're so heavy, and the way the suspension system is set up, once you start getting over 60, 65, 70 miles an hour, it's like riding on a paint shaker.
Yeah, those trains do not like high speeds.
They don't. It's not necessarily the train itself, it's the beam. Especially on the Epcot line, without getting into the structural engineering of the Epcot line, it's very bouncy. It's like being on a trampoline.
I've noticed that occasionally it would feel like the monorail's kind of bouncing along on the Epcot line.
So when they were building the Epcot line, they would put the pylons in, go home for the weekend, come back on Monday, and the pylon had sank several feet. And so they would have to pull it, reseat it, put new foundations underneath it. What a lot of people don't know is that the land around the Magic Kingdom and around the Epcot area is structurally kind of
wishy-washy.
Yeah, there's actually supposed to be a resort between the TTC and the Contemporary, and when they started doing this, when they started doing the land survey, they found that there was a great big sinkhole right there, and that if they were to build it on it, the hotel would have sank straight into the lake.
Well, that wouldn't have been good.
No, not really. So they had to be careful when they built stuff. And someone had popped up a question in the chat about whether or not we've heard anything about the rumors about building a gondola system to the Magic Kingdom from the TTC. Yeah. Probably won't happen.
I don't see them. I don't see them trying to outdo the monorail system. It's too iconic for them.
They won't. It's not that they wouldn't do it because they're trying to outdo the monorail system. It's the structural integrity of the land. I don't see them doing it because they would have to put, just because of space reasons, they would have to put pylons into the lake. Well, the lake's got some structural. I don't want to say structural issues. I just don't see them putting that kind of weight on it. They'd have to drain Seven Seas Lagoon, do some structural engineering, and then place the pylon in there. I don't see them doing that.
No.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is Florida.
Yeah. Florida's one big sinkhole.
Florida is just a giant sinkhole.
Yeah. I'd like to deny it, but that's what my state is.
Yeah.
I know you two probably don't know this, but I am a native Floridian. I'm one of the few native Floridians out there. So,
so you're a cracker.
I'm a Florida cracker. Yep. And to address something else, I'm sure someone else is going to ask: are they ever going to expand the monorails to Animal Kingdom or Hollywood Studios? No, I doubt it.
Actually, on the master plan that's in the Epcot Imagineering office, they have all the layouts for all the expansion lines. So everybody knows that there was supposed to be a monorail station at the Swan and Dolphin. They have all the data points for putting the extension going all the way out to Animal Kingdom. They have all the footing markers put out in the woods going to Animal Kingdom. Same thing to Hollywood Studios. People don't know that the lower platform at the Epcot station was actually supposed to be a second monorail station for the expansion. There's supposed to be a roundhouse spec behind Universe of Energy. That was supposed to be the second roundhouse.
That would explain why there's such that long flat area there, because it's supposed to be a second monorail station. Because I've always wondered, why is there such a long flat area here? Why don't we go down immediately? You've answered my longer war.
The original plan was to put a monorail station there, but Eisner was a very anti-monorail guy. He was all about the numbers, and he knew that back then it was $1 million a mile to build track, and it was something like $15 million a train. And they're like, well, for $1 million, I can buy an entire fleet of buses, and they're disposable. And every 5 years, I can just toss it in the trash and buy another one. And so he was really dependent on those buses, and he wanted a huge bus fleet. That's why they have something like 300 or 400 buses on the property.
I think currently we're at like 400.
Yeah.
Pretty much taking up the entire SCAR parking lot at TTC right now.
So that's why they never expanded in the early days, is because Eisner wouldn't give them the money for it. He's like, I can do other stuff with this money and not spend it on the monorail system. And then, 2014. There was an uptick in the wanting of doing an expansion system. They started getting quotes for prices. And a lot of people don't know a lot of the history of why Siemens decided to leave Epcot. There are some people who just made Siemens really mad, because Siemens said, hey, we'll build you an entire monorail fleet and build all the track and everything. We just kind of want our name on the side of the monorail. And someone high up in the food chain is like, you're not putting your name on our trains. Even though they were going to get a free fleet in track system of brand new monorails. And it just made Siemens kind of upset. And they're like, you know what? We're just going to leave.
Geez, an entire new monorail fleet for free.
Yep, we could have had a new fleet already.
Just for the price of a sponsorship logo on the side.
Yep.
But there's some purists that are in the transportation unit that says if it's not a Disney train, we're not having it. And they're like, you're not going to build a train that looks like our fleet. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. And in all honesty, they can build trains to look like ours. So there's other manufacturers that put out a train that looks very similar to the Mark 6. It's not a proprietary look by Bombardier. It's just a lot of people don't copy it because they just don't want to deal with the hassles of it. But even the new fleet that Disney had worked with Bombardier to build is different than the fleet that we have now. It's a different look, different feel. From what I understand, that the proposed trains that they were going to build, you can walk from one end of the train to the other. There's really no pilot station. There is an area where a pilot can be, but it's not necessary because it's a fully automated system. And
I just can't imagine a fleet of trains at Walt Disney World that does not look like the Mark 6. Obviously it's possible, but in my head, it just doesn't compute.
The the biggest difference is it would actually look a lot more like the Mark IV. It'd be a little bit shorter, a little bit wider. The nose would be just a little bit different. The problem is that Bombardier, they've already retooled their factory to produce this current model that they're building that they would have made for Disney, which with them losing, was it $15 million a day by not being open, they may have put that on hold. And
I wouldn't doubt it.
yeah, and so these trains have already been retooled for their mass production market. It wouldn't be hard for them to retool it to make this train in a different shape to match the look that we have now. As long as we just don't get the trains that Disneyland has, because those are I like retro look. Not really a huge fan of their train.
They have no air conditioning.
No.
Well,
I definitely don't want Tokyo.
That does not fly in Florida.
No, it doesn't.
no, just we're kind of being robbed of the first summer test of the Skyliner right now.
Oh God, yeah.
Anyway, so moving on here. Do y'all prefer the current gray and purple costumes for the monorail pilots, or how about the classic maroon and
white? They look
white?
like bus drivers.
I constantly get asked where I work in Tomorrowland, which I mean thematically, I can see it. It always upsets me a little bit because, like, no, I am a monorail pilot. I'm very proud of that. Like, I don't have the experience of the Maroons, which is sad because anytime you work with anybody who's been there for longer than like 2-3 years, they're always like, the Maroons were the best. They were so comfy. I miss them. Some people are like, we secretly stole them. And I'm like, wow, that's a little, that's a little too much for me, but okay.
I mean, I won't say that I don't maybe have some monorail uniform.
I've heard
somewhere.
so many people be like, I pretended to put it back in the system. And it's upsetting because I love the maroon ball caps. I do not like the current Gray's hat. I don't like that it's monorail yellow on it. And, not to be offensive to monorail yellow, but it's the whole flow of the costume is not good. It doesn't fit really well if you're not like a stick.
I don't understand the military
Nobody
ribbons.
does. Nobody understands that. And it's great because they made these costumes, right? They put so much money into making them and overhauling the costume system. They immediately repainted some of the trains. So now that is outdated.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean,
I do not like that part of it. I can make cheesy jokes out of it, thankfully. Especially when I'm talking to like a group of people. Like I'm working Fireworks Exit at Magic Kingdom, and people are just in there staring at me. One of the cool ways I like to break the ice is being like, "You see this patch over my heart? That's the color of all the monorails because the monorails are the heart of our operation." And people generally will like that. But people generally really like that. But just, oh God, they're just not comfortable, not cute. Every time I hear somebody be like, well, the Maroons, I'm like, yes, I know. I want that ball cap. That's all I want.
At least it's not the blue and yellow and the hard hat. That was the worst look ever.
I'm glad I never got to experience that. I'll take grays and blues over the blues and yellows.
All right. So, Red, I'm going to need some pictures.
Okay. I will dig some pictures up and I'll send them to you in the chat.
All right. Cool. All right. So y'all both prefer the classic Maroons. So let's go with this.
Then there's actually 2 or 3 different versions of the Maroons too.
I never got to experience them. I've only experienced the current costumes, unfortunately.
So what is one thing you wish every guest knew about the monorails or the pilots? Start with Coral.
One thing. That's a really good question, actually, because there's a couple things that I've thought about this. And one of them is I 100% feel in my cab whenever somebody is jumping on my train or swinging on the handrails. And usually I'll hit my PA button and be like, I know you're jumping, because the really cool thing about these trains is they run on an air suspension system. So that means anytime anybody is jumping around in any of the cars, it doesn't matter which, it could be the first one right behind me or the 6th one all the way at the end by the other cab, I will 100% feel that person jumping around because you do get a feel for the train. Like Red said earlier, it's a 64-ton train empty. you get a feel for it, especially if you've already done stuff like I have, where I've transported livestock and trailers and stuff before. Every little tiny minute movement you can feel at a point, and you can hear sometimes. So like, especially when big groups come through, or it's holidays, or it's spring break, or it's the cheerleader events, I always just take a second on my PA and be like, please do not lean against the doors, and do not jump on the handrails. They're handrails, not gymnastics courts.
There's no greater feeling than being at the high point coming between the Grand Flow and the Magic Kingdom, and someone does a door alert on you when you're 300 feet in the air. It's awesome.
So actually, really weird. Actually, Red, you'll know what I'm talking about. But leaving Magic Kingdom on top of the hill between the Magic Kingdom and the Grand Floridian, right at the curve, I have always gotten door alerts right about pylon 97, 96, 97.
Yeah.
And you can't make visuals out there because it's dark. You can't see because your train is curved, and you have to go all the way from the top of that hill to the transportation ticket center, hoping something else doesn't go wrong while you're in the middle of doing all your door alert procedures. That is the only place I have ever gotten door alerts in my entire life.
Yeah. That's actually stuff that we had to deal with back then too.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've seen commonly, well, I shouldn't say commonly, I've only seen it a couple times. I don't know why I say commonly, but I have seen it one time. I've been in the monorail, and it was like in my part of the cab, because the cab's divided by that seat. But so in my half of the cab, there's been me, a dad, a mother, and their 2 daughters. And the dad and one of the daughters sat there, not holding onto the handrail, standing, trying to, kind of like surfing, trying to see who can keep their balance the longest.
Yeah, I generally don't mind things like that. Just as long as you're not bouncing off my doors,
I saw that. I'm just like, okay, I'm about to watch someone eat it for the first time.
It's actually really funny to just not be in costume, just be like going to the parks and seeing people do like dumb stuff on the trains, like jumping over the seats and then falling when somebody stops their train too hard. And you're just like, you should have listened to the safety rules.
I cannot confirm or deny that I've actually laughed at people as they're hurting themselves.
I have, okay. I always laugh secretly, like especially if I'm on the platform. There was a day I was working by myself on the Magic Kingdom Express side. I was closing a train up, and as I was closing the train up, this lady comes running up the ramp, and she's got this big like hiking backpack on, and she tries to go under the chains that are between her and the train. Her backpack gets stuck. She does like a cartoon style backflip over the chain because her backpack got caught, landed like on her like stomach because she did a whole like somersault in the air. And I couldn't, I just started laughing so hard. She's like, I deserve this. I'm like, yes. And unfortunately, I still have to send the train. Sent the train, and we got her a spot in her own car on the next train.
Oh my. All right. So let's see. You've already told a couple stories, but let's go ahead and go into it again. What is probably the funniest story you've ever had happen while being a pilot?
Okay. I was a brand new pilot, and this is definitely a story that if anybody who knows me specifically or thinks that like my voice is my voice, they're going to pinpoint me in exactly when I tell this story. When I was a brand new pilot, like literally 3 days on the job, I was working the Grand Floridian station because the hand pack system that we used to drop power when we're not standing at our consoles was down at the station. So we had to open another position called the hover position. It's where you stand next to the console, and if anything happens, you drop power to the station immediately. You're basically a living human hand pack. Very end of the night, we were like 2 trains from shutting down. We were just cycling out the people that were already on the line so that we could be done for the night. And again, brand new, I had no idea what was going on. I was working on like basic training and just excitement at this point. A lady comes out of Monorail Peach at the Grand Floridian station. She is bright red. She is shaking. She is angry. She's looking at me. She's looking at the other guy on the platform. She's looking at me. I'm trying to avoid eye contact so I don't have to like talk to her or anything. She comes up to me and I'm secretly sweating bullets. I'm like, I have no idea how to deal with angry guests. I don't know what's going on. Who do I even call for this? What is she going to say to me? She comes up and goes, I just want you to know there's poop on the monorail. And I was like, wait, wait, I was not prepared for this. So
only poop?
She takes me to the train. She goes, in all of my time at Disney, I've never seen anything like this. You should be ashamed of yourself. This is unacceptable. I was like, well, and I said this completely not thinking about it because I didn't have a Disney filter. I looked at her and I said, well, if you've been coming here that long and haven't seen poop, you seem pretty lucky. And she got so mad. She just started screaming at me on the platform. And she was just sitting there, like, yelling at me, bright red, shaking. I was like, no, it's fine. I'll get it taken care of. You have a good night. Because she's just so mad at me at this point. And finally, she goes away. And I'm talking with the driver. I'm like, I don't know what to do for this. This was not ever really explained to me during training. He's like, it's fine. This train's going to shop. Train goes to shop. The next day, I get pulled down to my manager's office and they go, did you have a lady come talk to you last night at the Grand Floridian platform? I said, yes, I did. And they go, was there poop on the monorail? I go, yes, there was. They were like, how long have you been working here? I said, 3 days, including today. And the manager just kind of looked at me inside and went, next time, please call somebody. They let me go. And when I went back upstairs, I found out I had gained a new nickname. For the first 2 or 3 months of working in monorails, my nickname was Winnie the Pooh. and the worst part about this is, we have trading cards and they got overhauled recently, so they're all new and shiny and beautiful. People kept coming up to me and giving me Monorail Peach trading cards and saying, this is for you, Winnie the Pooh. That was my nickname for a while when I started. I'm really glad I grew out of it.
That was good. How about you, Red? Funny story.
You told me to be family friendly, so I got to try to think about this for a minute.
All right.
I've had a lot of very unfamily friendly things happen at Disney that are funny. They're just not exactly family friendly. Nope. Especially when you work at Animal Kingdom, because animals don't care about family friendly.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
Perfect story. It wasn't on the monorails. And this did not happen to me personally. It happened to a friend of mine. Driving on the driving the safari truck. They get out to East Savannah, which is out where the white rhinos, the lions, the ostriches are. And there's an animal stop because if you don't know, all the animals have names. No one really knows what the names are if you're not working on safari or animal programs. There's 3 ostriches. They're all female, even though there's one that has black and white feathers, which is supposed to be the dominant. That's actually a female, which normally females are all gray, like the other 2 are. That is, her name is Kermit. Kermit likes to get in front of trucks and just sit there and stand and make your truck sit there. And there's times where we've had downtimes for 30 minutes waiting for animal programs to come and move an ostrich. So my friend is on the early portion of East Savannah, which is where you normally will see the white rhinos if they're hanging out around that area. And rhinos can't see very well. They're pretty nearsighted, so they don't know what they're coming up on until they get pretty close to it. And so they'll charge at the trucks thinking that it's a predator until they get 10, 15, 20 feet away, and then they're like, oh, it's a truck. So one of the females, the matriarch of the white rhino, she came charging towards the truck, realized what it was, and she was a little grumpy about it. So she started stamping her feet, and she decided to show her backside towards the truck. And if you've never seen a rhino pee, especially a female rhino, it comes out like a fire hydrant where the semer cap has come off. It's just large gushing of fluid. Well, there's this teenager who had her arm over the side of the truck and she wasn't paying attention. And all of a sudden, this rhino decided to open up full blast, covered her from shoulder to arm or shoulder to hand in rhino pee, which is something you can't scrub that smell off. It's there for a while.
Oh no!
Yes.
Oh dear.
There was a team of managers waiting at the exit dock for this guest, where they quickly ushered her to a place where she could get cleaned up, and they gave her fresh clothing. It's stuff like that made me smile at Animal Kingdom, because the animals they don't go by a script. They kind of do their own thing, and you never know what you're going to get.
Oh my gosh! Hey, how many people can say they got free clothes at Disney because they got peed on by a rhino, though?
It's true. I've talked with some cast members over at Pirates where a boat had sank. Everybody in the boat got ushered out through a back door. They shut down the Emporium and let them go shopping. They're like, take whatever you want off the rack. It's fine. We'll cover it.
I mean, you kind of have to at that point.
Yeah.
Free shopping spree in the Emporium. I'd be in heaven because I'm a merch fiend. All right. So we Red touched lightly on this a little earlier, but have you heard anything about replacement monorails? Because as we know, the current fleet's way past its replacement date. They're kind of limping along at this point.
Yeah, so the monorails themselves, they're supposed to have a 20-year shelf life. That's if they're maintained 100% and that they have easy replacement parts and stuff like that. A lot of the replacement parts on the Mark 6, the companies who are making them aren't in business anymore. And so Central Shops, which is the shop next to the monorail roundhouse, actually had to take spare parts, mold them, create molds for them, and they would have to recast parts for the trains because, lo and behold, they don't have anybody they can buy them from. Even to the point where even Bombardier doesn't have access to the replacement parts because most people who have the Mark 6 trains don't have Mark 6 trains anymore. So we are past our date, our usability date. We have a great team of fleet maintenance who keep the trains running as best as they can, and they create new items to keep the trains going. I don't know if they still use the Allison fire system on the train. Allison was a big pain in our rears in the summertime because when it started reading 120 degrees, it thought there was a fire on the train. And then this nice loud alarm would go off in my ear as I'm driving. I don't know if you'll still have that system. I heard that you'll get rid of it.
We don't have Allison. We now have Fike. But yeah, does the same thing. If it's too hot, the trains will be like, nope, gotta go take a break.
Yep.
They'll tell us that they're too hot. Maintenance will come out and be like, yeah, the train's hot. And we're like, okay, what do we do about that? They're like, go put it away.
Yeah. And so
our maintenance people are still phenomenal. They work super duper hard. We literally have like one guy right now who's been labeled as an essential maintenance worker. He goes and starts up the trains apparently so that the batteries don't die out completely. But every time I go to shop, our maintenance people are just incredibly busy maintaining and refurbing and painting and working as hard as they can on it. And they're all awesome people. I love talking to our maintenance people because some of them have been there forever and they have so many stories about these trains and things that have happened and things they've had to fix on them. And if you just sit and talk to them for 5, 10, 15 minutes while maybe your train is getting serviced in the shop or you're waiting for somebody to come pick you up, they'll tell you all these things and they're just awesome people.
That was one of my favorite times when we take trains back to shop and we get to sit and talk with them. Y'all, unfortunately, do not have Hal working for y'all anymore. Hal was in Ask a Legacy Driver about Hal. They'll have a story about him. He is the old guy from Up. That was our head monorail maintenance guy. He was the curmudgeon. He was the one who always yelled at you. He was the one shaking his fist at the clouds, every time that something bad would happen to the monorails. he did his darndest to keep the trains moving. He I don't even know how to describe him any further than that. He kept the trains going in circles when we were doing our darndest to keep them from moving. Period. But yeah, going to shop was a treat when you got to talk to them about.
Oh, it's an awesome time. For some reason, it just seems like I get stuck in the trains that are having issues a lot to bring back to shop. I don't know if it's just luck of the draw or if somebody would just prefer me driving some of the more broken trains back to shop. But every time I go back, there's always one or two. It's like, what did you break now? What do we have to fix that you did now?
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate reputation to have, but it's one that's fun to have.
It is. The about 3 years ago, they actually started working from some of my resources that are still with the company. They've told me that about 3 years ago, they started doing some work behind the scenes with Bombardier about how they're going to process new trains and what it was going to take to do it. There's a lot of logistical issues that they're having to work around, retooling the plant to make it, because the height of our track is different than the track that they're selling now, so they have to adjust the height. If you notice now, the Mark 6 trains are a good 4 or 5 inches higher than the platform. The Mark 4s, you could roll straight into it. You didn't need a special ramp. You didn't need to do any of that stuff. When they built the Mark 6, they didn't adjust the tooling process to adjust for that. So now we have trains that are a little bit taller. So now with the new trains, they're trying to figure out how they're going to get new trains, if they're going to have to make any adjustments to the stations, if they're going to have to, like the air gap doors at the Contemporary, when they were building the Mark 6s, they actually took cardboard and attached it to the sides of, I think, blue and red, to mimic the width of the new trains. And they were trying to get them in through the air gap doors. They kept on breaking the cardboard off because they kept on slapping the sides of the air gap doors, until they figured out that they were going to have to expand the air gap doors at the Contemporary to accommodate the new trains, which is a whole process in itself, because those doors don't move very well. I mean, they're not designed to be expanded. So there's lots of behind the scenes things that they're having to do. They have a design that was already placed into approval, color schemes, the whole look and feel was already approved, and now the virus hit, and now it's all up in limbo.
Yeah, I heard some people speculate with all the credit loans that Disney's been getting, that they're seeing like they're trying not to have anything be delayed from this.
Well,
they're
they just took
pushing forward.
They just took an $11 billion loan to help keep the company afloat. So we'll see how that works.
Because I think ideally for the company, they want to have things that were in process keep going, because eventually coronavirus is going to move on. It's going to cease to be a problem, and crowds are going to return to their previous capacity before this, and they're going to want to be able to provide them with new experiences.
Well, if Bob C is true to his normal game, he'll make the turkey legs $25 a piece.
Oh my gosh,
the emu legs.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a reason one of my favorite hashtags is budget cut Bob. So
yeah. Now, a funny story about the turkey legs. One of the days I was working in quick service foods, I was working at one of the turkey leg carts, and I was talking with one of the managers, and I was asking him about product cost versus what we sell them for, because it's one of those nerdy things that I was looking at the time, and they're like, well, we buy each turkey leg for 74 cents a piece, and we're selling them for, I think at the time, $11 a leg, $10 a leg. So I mean, they have a super high markup on all the foods. Now, there's a lot of stuff about the food and beverage I could tell you about at Disney about that will make you head spin about costs. All the soda, all the cups, all the lids, all the straws, the bag in the box syrup, all that is given to the company. Disney does not pay a dime for soda. All that's donated to them by Coke, because it's a partnership that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So they're selling you a Coke for $6, and that's $6 profit going into their pocket. And there's
Pure
a lot of
profit
things.
for Disney.
Oh yeah, pure profit. There's a lot of stuff that they do, like the trading pins, cost them anywhere from 25 cents to $4 to make, depending on the pin, and they're upselling them for upwards of $20 a piece.
Yeah, you get to the higher tier, collectible ones, the limited
Yeah.
editions.
Before then, they tried doing baseball cards, and they failed miserably. I don't know if you ever saw the pre-pin stuff that they used to do.
No.
But they have focus groups based on how to make the most amount of profit off of the cheapest amount of merchandise that they can get. A lot of the stuff that they sell in the parks are given to them at well below cost because of the amount of volume that they sell.
I believe it. All right, so I'm down to my final 2 questions, guys, and this has been so fun. So let's get here. So despite the monorails being past the replacement date, would you consider them still safe to ride? Because you get a lot of people like, oh, they are so far past their quote unquote sell by date. They're not safe to ride. I refuse. Would you consider them still safe to ride?
I would. I mean, there's knowing the things that we know about maintenance and the upkeep that they do, the amount of work that they put into keeping those trains maintained, I have no problem. I mean, I work in EMS, so I'm able to quickly see safety issues because I'm just trained that way. I see things before they happen, I guess you would say, and I haven't seen a real big problem. I mean, there are concerns, but it's not a safety concern. It's more of like, why does it smell like a barn inside the train?
Yeah, there's another reason a lot of people avoid the trains these days because they smell bad on the inside. Personally, I don't really have a problem with how they smell. But some people do.
Yeah.
So I don't think they smell that bad. And
maybe there's just some poop laying on the floor somewhere. It's
well, my mod Chase said he was the one that pooped on the floor that day. So sorry, Coral. He's joking, of course.
Now, a funny thing. When I worked at Animal Kingdom, I saw a mom like usher her kid to the bushes to let him pee in the bushes, and I like flagged down one of the managers, like, "Hey, look, the kid's just taking a pee in the bush over there," and they're like, "It's okay, just let them do it because there's other cultures out there where that's perfectly fine." Because if you go to, let's say, France, for instance, it's perfectly normal for you when you're on the road just to pull over and pee on the side of the road or take a poop on the side of the road, and it's just natural cultural things like that. So peeing in the monorail, I mean, if you're from New York, it's normal. If you're from DC, it's probably normal. France, normal, just not so normal for everybody else.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so this is the point of the stream where we come to where we let the audience ask some questions. So, audience, this is your chance to ask some questions to the monorail pilots here. So, anyone got any questions for Red and Coral?
And it looks like Coral had to go, so it looks like it's just going to be me.
Yep. So, just Red. Okay. Yep, Coral had to go. So thank you, Coral, for popping in tonight. But we're gonna let Red field some questions here, then we'll wrap up the stream.
Dapper Canuck, yes, I know it's not normal, but apparently other countries do it.
I think we did have some questions earlier. Let me see if I can go back and find them while we're waiting for people to type new ones. So I can take this moment real quick and shout out to the donations to the channel tonight. We did get a $5 super sticker from Living in Diz. Thank you for that, Corey. And I got a $40 PayPal from Chase a little earlier. Thanks for that, buddy. So Chase, here's your question. Chase says, I understand why we can't ride in the front anymore, but would there ever be a time we could ride up there again? Like, could that policy be updated to allow guests to ride up there again? Which personally I would love, because I don't remember ever riding up front to begin with.
In its current in its current form, no. It's too much of a liability. If they were to ever go to the style train that I'm thinking that they're going to go with, where it's an open cab from end to end, there will be a space up front for people. I mean, it'll be like kind of like the Disneyland trains, where it's open cab all the way up to the driver's area. But riding in the front as it is now, it won't happen. It's too much of a safety risk.
Okay. That's disappointing. My dad said he rode up front.
I used to love having guests up front with me. I mean, it was a great time. Sometimes they'd be a distraction, and I learned about the worst of humanity when it comes to Disney guests. I had two different families, a grandmother and their child, and a mom and her child. And the grandmother's like, hey, if you want to get on the lines faster, go to guest services and tell them your child's handicapped, and they'll give you this card and they'll let you get on the lines free or earlier. And I'm just like, don't do that. Don't. Just don't.
No, you ruin it for those that actually need it. So my friend Corey, who I just mentioned, asked, does the monorail go in at a slower speed in the morning or in the afternoon, as opposed to getting guests out of the park or the evening? Like,
as far as Legacy, when I was there, we all based our timing of how many trains were on the track, and I think current pilots also are having to base their station time based on how many trains on the track. Because especially on Express, you're moving 4 trains around. You have to kind of figure out where the train ahead of you is, if you can proceed forward. They didn't add the station timers until the end of my time there, where they're like, hey, you got 5 minutes. You got to get in and out in 5 minutes. And we had this little countdown clock. There was times where we'd have trains sitting in the station for 10 minutes, 12 minutes for whatever reason. There might be something wrong ahead of them. So it wasn't really a morning versus night, exit operation. We pushed ourselves to get in and out of the stations quicker at the close, at the exit points, just because we're trying to dump 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 people out of the park. So we would shorten our station times to open your exit doors and open up your entrance doors. Push people out as they're getting in. It's kind of like those videos of, if you ever look at the videos of the station police at the Japanese railway or Japanese subway stations, where they're literally pushing you in, like forcing you as many people in there. It's kind of like how it was at the end of the nights for us, where we would just force as many people in, close the doors, and go. And then another train will pull in, and we just, instead of doing 5-minute station times, we would do like 3-minute station times and just try to lap it out quicker. But in normal operations, we stick to 5 minutes or 8 minutes in station, then we would go.
All right. So Chase asked, what is the number of trains on the line each day during a normal day versus a busy day?
The maximum they can run on a track will be 4. It's the less amount of trains, the longer it takes to get. Oh, man, this is kind of a weird way to answer it. It takes longer to get from station to station with the more amount of trains that are on the track, because you have any number of scenarios where a train may be held up in the station. So now at your hold point behind you, you got a train that's waiting, and a hold point behind that, you have a train that's waiting, and it kind of like slows down the traffic. So if you look at, let's say, a wreck on the interstate, we'll start backing up traffic. It's going to take a good while for that traffic to start moving smooth again. So we actually preferred running with fewer trains on the track, because we could get in and out of stations easier.
I mean, that makes sense. All right, so resort budgeting, and this is ones I'm not sure that the pilots can answer, but do they make you do an emergency stop when you're doing safety checks in the morning?
Not moving. We'll hit our e-stops to make sure it powers down the train, but not while we're let me rephrase that. We used to do an ESOP check coming into the Magic Kingdom or into the TTC station, but I think they stopped doing that.
Okay. Checking to see. Corey, we did answer your question. Let me see if we got any other questions in the history of the chat. I think we do somewhere. I'm not sure my chat's going to go back far enough for it. No, it's not. All right. Well, does anyone else have any questions for Red before we wish him good night? And while we wait to see if the chat has any more questions, Red, I want to thank you for coming on. I know Coral had to go, but I thank her for coming on as well. I think we had a fun time talking about these beloved trains and all that. So
I had a good time.
Trip down memory lane for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had a good time doing it.
All right. Chase asks, what causes the line to lose power from time to time?
Okay, so the monorail system is built on a DC power system, so you have to have a rectifier every. I'm gonna throw out a number here, and it's probably gonna be wrong. You have to have a rectifier every 1,200 feet to supply power for that section. So a rectifier could go down. We could be switching the track from one line to the other to move trains around. We'll have to power down a rectifier for that. Hate to say it, but there's gremlins in the system. Sometimes a reflector or a collector shoe will pop off and we'll lose power on the train for that, or we'll lose enough power on the train that slows us down a little bit. There's any number of reasons why the train would lose power, or a rectifier would go down, or whatnot.
Fortunately, I am fortunate enough to never have been on a train that's lost power while I'm on it. So I'm sure my day's coming with how often I go to Disney World. I'm sure it's inevitably going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So let's see. Resort Budgeting asks, when your train is down, do you go to other trains or are you assigned to a specific train?
So in my day, they would just move us around from station to station, and whatever station we were working is where we would rotate back and forth between the trains. So like if for this block of time I was working at Epcot, I might be at the Epcot station, I might be at the TTC on the Epcot line, or I might be on one of those trains, and they would just rotate us out every couple hours or whatever. So we'd break a train or we break a station person or whatever. But they eventually evolved into what they're doing now, where you are assigned an area. So you might be a contemporary pilot, and a contemporary pilot will have 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, however many trains that they have on the system, be divided up by the different stations, and you'll rotate between the contemporary platform and the contemporary train. And sometimes it'll be like 2 stations, so you'll be like Kingdom and Contemporary, and the trains that are on that area. They're doing it differently now, so that way they can make sure they schedule enough people in each area to make sure that the system's running properly, from what I've been told.
All right, so I got a few questions come in from Resort Budgeting. Resort Budgeting also asks, is the MK line smoother than Epcot?
Smoother, maybe. It's not necessarily the track; it's the train, and how the suspension setup is set up.
So I do have a couple questions myself for this audience portion. I'm going to consider myself audience for a moment. Which trains give you the most trouble? Which ones give you the least trouble? Give me 2 on each end.
So green is the best train. It rarely ever has any problems, but then again, it's one of the youngest trains that they have. I've in my time, green never gave me any trouble. It was a great train to drive. Blue was always a great train to drive. Rarely gave
Of
us any
course, I'm
problems.
blue.
I know, right? On the other side of that, all the trains have their own quirks. Black was struck by lightning back in, man, what year was that? That was, I think 2002. Cab 6 was struck by lightning going up to the Contemporary when it was on the express line. It's had some personality quirks with it. Never really gave us a whole lot of trouble. Sometimes it would just like kind of like forget what it was or what it was doing, and then it would go, "Oh yeah, I'm a train again," and wouldn't have any problem. Red is notorious for breaking down all the time.
That's why she hit. That's why she has a Karen hairdo in your picture.
Yes. She wants to speak to your manager because she doesn't understand why the trains aren't going. Yellow is a troublemaker. Yellow doesn't break down a lot, but it just the way it drove back then was kind of I don't even know how to explain it. It's personality quirks. It's not really like damage to the train. Like the reason why Red's got so many personality quirks is because it's the Franken train. They use it to test out new things for the rest of the fleet. So it's kind of like the demo train or the beta, I guess you would call it. So that's why it may have more trouble than the rest of them. Yellow isn't far behind on Red on that. They'll test out some things on Yellow because each train is set up a little bit different than the other train. So what might work great for Yellow doesn't work for Red. So they might try new braking systems on Yellow, where Red is great for testing out new computer updates and upgrades.
So, have you ever blown a tire while on the rail?
A guide tire, the side tires, I've blown one of those, which wasn't that big of a deal. A main drive tire, when those go off, it's like a mini. It's like an explosion. It's like it's like oh my god, I think we're going to die. Kind of loud. It's just very loud. The tires under pressure. Where your normal car tires under 32 pounds of pressure per square inch, typically, these drive tires are closer to like 100.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's they're under a lot of strain and pressure, and when those go off, it. You can feel it. Yeah, you could have the drive tire in cab 6 blow, and you'll know it in the front. I mean, it'll be like, why is there an earthquake in Florida?
That bad? Wow.
It can be. In my time, the 2 years I was in the department, I think I've only heard of one tire blowing in the 2 years.
So Dapper Canuck wants to know, did you ever walk on the rail? I assume he means the beam.
No. When I was there, it was a terminable offense to do anything like that. Now, years before that, it was actually something that you could do. You could actually cross the from one side of the station to the other by doing it. But that was way back in like the Stone Ages of the monorail system.
All right. So Resort Budget wants to know, what was the line you always wanted to run? Did you prefer running the Magic Kingdom lines or the Epcot lines?
Oh man, so it depends on what I was doing. So my favorite place to be was at night on resorts, because there was always this chance that coming out of the Contemporary, and sometimes even on the express line where we're putting a train away, you'll be up on that high bridge between the Contemporary and the Magic Kingdom, and you'll sit there and you'll park, and you'll be parked for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour waiting to get the trains off. And I would sit on the couch that's at the nose of the train, and I would just stare off into the stars and just be one with the train. You could feel the hum of the train powered beneath you, and you get to see this beautiful star system above you and just be zen. That was always a great time. I also love driving on Epcot because you have long straightaways. It's not this go park, go park, go park like when you're on the express line. I mean, it's I always hated that because it was you never really get to be one with your train, and that was the one thing that I could always say when I was driving the trains is that I could become one with the train itself. I could feel every bump in the track, and I would know exactly where it was. I could close my eyes and know where it was at any given point in the time. Express is kind of hard to do that. It's by the time you close your eyes, you got to open them again because you're pulling into the station.
Yeah. From a guest perspective, I can say that I hate it when I'm coming from Epcot and I'll get to TTC and I'll have to switch trains, to get to Magic Kingdom. And, it's late enough in the day that they've closed down the express line for taking guests to Magic Kingdom, and you have to get on the resort line. And I'm just like, hello, I've got 10 minutes to get there, and you're making me take the resort line. I'm never going to make it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just throw me on express, I will absolutely make it. It's just, a guess gripe, but whatever. So got two last questions for you here, then we'll wrap it up. So Resort Budgeting wants to know, how did a fish get on the track?
So there's a lot of wildlife in the park or around the parks, and there's some eagle and red-tailed hawk nests that were historically always near the water inlet that feeds water into the rivers of America. And so the hawks and the eagles would go down, swoop down, catch fish. Then they come up onto the track to eat. And then a train will come and the birds are like, crap, I got to leave. And they'll leave the fish on the track. And there you go.
All right. Okay, so Chase has I guess we consider this two-part because it's both having to do with maintenance. So these are the last two questions, and I'll ask them to you at the same time. Chase wants to know, how did they change out the drive tires, and why are the brakes so jerky now? So these are the last questions. Chase gets them.
All right. So the drive tires, man, you're making me have to think way back in my history. So if I remember correctly, they have an I-beam system that is above one of the maintenance lines where they could, like a hoist, they could hook a chain up to a hoist hook on the train, take the pressure off the drive tire, and then they could pull it off, if I remember correctly. They would actually have to, if I remember correctly, they'd have to separate the cars where they're going to have to change it and then pull it out that way. Yeah. If I remember correctly, that's how they do it.
Yeah. And the other half was, why are the brakes so kind of jerky now?
Now I couldn't tell you. They are an air braking system. So it could be anything from that there is like a air bubble in the system. Well, air bubble is not the right word. There's like a bubble in the system where the air pressure doesn't close the brakes all the way, and then the air bubble will move and the brakes will slam shut, or not enough air pressure in the system because there's a compressor for each car. So that's what I'm thinking it is. That's what it was when I was there. I'm not sure about today, what it's like. Because it's been, let's see, I left Monorails in 2010, so it's been 10 years since I was a pilot.
Yeah, it's been a minute for you, hasn't it?
It's been about 5.
All right. So this was the last one on my list, and we're going to close with this one. Any final words for the audience?
Please stand clear of the doors.
I actually had this Googled up, and I'm going to say this while you're here. So I Googled Google Translate. So Google Translate, y'all know how accurate or inaccurate that can be. And it goes, por favor, manténganse alejado de la transmisión en vivo, which is please stand clear of the live broadcast or the live stream. So I actually Googled that because I thought it'd be funny. So in the spirit of the Doors, Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Honk honk.
Hong Kong. All right, Red, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
And we may do a part 2 of this one day in the future, so if I need you or Coral again for this, I'll let y'all know.
Okay.
All right, so if you want to stick around while I do the outro, you can. If you're not, you can go ahead and hit the leave broadcast button, and I'll close out the stream solo.
All
right. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you to Red and Coral for coming in tonight. Let's do a couple announcements on the stream. We did cancel this past Sunday's movie night, so we're going to do it this Sunday night. Homeward Bound, and that'll be at about 9 o'clock-ish on Sunday night. Next week, we have a special streams planned for next Tuesday. We're going to get all the mods in. We're going to do a podcast like live stream in lieu of the usual interview, because next week interview is going to have to happen on Thursday, because that's the only day our interviewee was available. It is Steven delivering the magic, one of my good friends. So special Thursday interview stream next week, and that's the schedule for the next week. And with that said, it is time to say goodbye. So if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button on your way out the door. Make sure you if you're not already, you hit the subscribe button, ring that bell icon so you know when I go live or post new videos in the future. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And if you feel so inclined, you can donate to the channel at paypal.me/MyDisneyWorldFix. Thank you all so much for tuning in. One final time, thank you to Red and Coral for coming and hanging out and sharing everything they did tonight. So that said, we will say goodnight. We will see you real soon, and may all your dreams be magical. Good night, everyone.